I, male, 34, got completely screwed over at work, and I'm still trying to process what the hell just happened. So I've been at this financial company, Meridian Financial Solutions, which is a fake name, for over 7 years now. Started as a junior analyst right after getting my MBA. Finding a job back then was brutal. Graduated right in the middle of the recession and spent like 8 months sending out literally hundreds of applications before finally landing this position. Over the years, I worked my way up to senior financial analyst, consistently exceeding targets and taking on extra projects and staying late and basically doing whatever was needed. For context, I've been raising my daughter Jackie, 15, basically as a single dad for the past 3 years since my divorce. We have shared custody on paper, but she lives with me most of the time since her mom moved about 45 minutes away for a new job. Work kind of became my anchor during all that mess. I probably put in way too many hours trying to prove myself, but it was also a place where I felt like I actually knew what I was doing while everything else in my life was falling apart. My department manager, Glenn, male, 48, has been with the company for almost 20 years. He's pretty demanding, but I always thought he was fair. Guess I was completely wrong about that, but I'll get to that. The team manager position, which would be my direct supervisor but under Glenn, has been vacant for about 4 months after the previous manager left for a competitor. Glenn had been hinting really strongly that I was next in line. He even had me temporarily handling most of the manager responsibilities already. Like, I've been training new hires, leading our weekly strategy meetings, handling difficult client relations, pretty much everything except the actual title and pay. Just 3 months ago, I had my annual review, and Glenn told me to keep doing what you're doing and said I was being groomed for management. It wasn't just vague hints. He specifically mentioned the team manager position multiple times over the past few months. I mean, maybe I'm an idiot for believing him, but it seemed pretty clear to me and everyone else that I was next in line. This promotion would have meant a significant pay increase, around $15,000 annually, which would have made a huge difference for me and Jackie. We've been living in this small 2-bedroom apartment that was supposed to be temporary after the divorce, and I've been stressing about starting a college fund for her. The extra money would have changed our situation so much. Like, we could finally get a place with more than one bathroom. Do you know what it's like sharing a bathroom with a teenage girl? My colleague Marie, female, 31, has been at the company for 5 years, and she's basically my work friend. We actually showed up to the holiday party 2 years ago wearing almost identical outfits completely by accident, and it became this whole joke in the office. She's actually really cool and one of the few people who makes work bearable sometimes. Anyway, she's been hearing the same things from Glenn about me being next in line for the promotion. So 2 weeks ago, I walk into what I thought was just a regular team meeting, actually thinking it might finally be my promotion announcement. Instead, Glenn introduces his nephew, Trevor, male, 26, as the new team manager. This kid mentioned graduating with his MBA 6 months ago from some school I've barely heard of and having some experience at his father's small investment firm. I was in complete shock. I couldn't even process what was happening. Marie kept shooting me these "what the frick" glances across the table, and I just sat there not knowing how to react. After the meeting, I asked Glenn if we could talk privately for a minute. I was trying so hard to be professional, even though I felt like I was going to either throw up or start yelling. I asked about the team manager position and said I thought I was being considered for it. Glenn looked super uncomfortable and mumbled something about needing fresh perspectives in the leadership team. I reminded him about my 7 years at the company and how I'd been consistently exceeding targets, and asked if there was something wrong with my performance. He said my work is fine, but Trevor is family and he knows his potential. When I brought up how he'd been telling me for months that I was being groomed for management, he got all defensive and said I misinterpreted general encouragement. I asked about all the additional manager responsibilities I've been handling, and he called them development opportunities, not guarantees of promotion. By this point, I was getting emotional and asked if my 7 years meant nothing. Glenn basically ended the conversation by saying I should be careful about my attitude since Trevor is my manager now. I was absolutely devastated. I could barely focus for the rest of the day. Called Marie that evening, and she was shocked too. suggested I start looking for another job. I updated my resume that night, but realized that with the current job market and needing stability for Jackie's sake, finding an equivalent position could take months. I've sent out a few applications, but haven't heard anything back yet. The next day, there was this awkward team lunch to welcome Trevor, which I really didn't want to go to, but felt like I had to. Found out he's actually Glenn's wife's nephew, and apparently he'd been struggling to find a job since graduation. At one point, Trevor mentioned attending the same university as me, but 10 years later, talking about how much the campus had changed, and I suddenly felt ancient, despite only being 34. This first week of working under Trevor has been a nightmare. He struggles with basic financial analyses that I could do in my sleep. Clients seem confused by his lack of product knowledge. There was this client call yesterday where he gave completely incorrect information about risk assessments, and I had to subtly correct him to avoid losing the client's trust. It was so uncomfortable. Yesterday, I overheard Trevor telling Glenn that he was getting the hang of things and that I've been helpful but seem a bit resentful. I mean, of course I'm resentful, but I've been trying to be professional because what else can I do? I'm so conflicted. I want to do my job well for the sake of the clients. I've built relationships with many of them over the years, but I'm bitter about training someone who was given the position I deserved. Jackie noticed I've been stressed and asked if everything was okay, which just makes me more determined to find a solution without jeopardizing our financial security. I don't know what to do. Start sending out more resumes. Confront Glenn again. Just suck it up and keep working. The job market is tight in our field right now, and I can't afford to take a pay cut when I'm already struggling to provide for Jackie. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the support and advice. Edit 2. To clarify, since many are asking, yes, we have an HR department, but they're pretty useless and basically just do whatever upper management wants. Glenn and the HR director play golf together every weekend. Now for the first update. Well, things have gotten way worse, and I just did something that might get me fired. So it's been about a month since my last post, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who commented with advice and support. A lot of you said I should just quit, and believe me, I've been trying. I've sent out like 30 plus resumes at this point, but the job market in financial analysis is really tight right now. The few interviews I've had were for positions that would mean taking a 10 to 15K pay cut, which I just can't afford with supporting Jackie on my own. And yeah, to everyone who suggested I sue for age discrimination, I looked into it, but apparently nepotism isn't technically illegal. It's just really shitty. Anyway, the past month with Trevor as my manager has been absolute hell. Like somehow even worse than I expected. This guy seriously has no idea what he's doing, and what's making it unbearable is that he's now regularly taking credit for my work. Like, not even subtly. Last week we had this big quarterly review presentation for Arcadia Investments. I spent 3 days putting together this detailed presentation with all the risk analyses, portfolio projections, etc. I mean, I stayed up until 2 a.m. twice finishing it because I actually care about doing good work for our clients. I sent it to Trevor for review, and this motherfucker just put his name on it. Didn't change anything else. Just deleted my name and added his. During the presentation, he was basically reading my slides word for word and not even doing a good job at it. Then when their CFO asked a specific question about the risk tolerance adjustments, Trevor completely froze. He had no idea how to explain it because he didn't do the work. After an awkward silence, he told them I could probably explain it better and I had to jump in and save his ass. After the meeting, Glenn pulled me aside and told me I need to be more supportive of Trevor during presentations and that I should prep him better next time. I mean, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to do all the work, let him take all the credit, and coach him on how to present my work better. I was so angry, I couldn't even respond without risking saying something that would get me fired. I've actually been recording a lot of our meetings and conversations for years. It's totally legal in my state, only need one-party consent, me. It started back in college when this professor accused me of misquoting something from his lecture on an essay. After that, I got paranoid about having exact records of important conversations, especially when stuff gets technical, like in our field. I never really thought much about it until Trevor showed up. But after he started, I found myself recording more and more. partly to protect myself, I guess. Like, I wanted proof of what was actually being said in these meetings, because I started noticing how Trevor would say one thing in the meeting, then report something completely different to Glenn. It's not just me noticing this stuff either. Marie and a few others have seen what's happening. The other day, Marie texted me asking if Trevor seriously just presented my dividend strategy as his own idea in that email. So, at least I'm not going crazy. Jackie's noticed something's up too. She asked me last weekend why I've been so stressed, and if we're having money problems. I tried to be honest without scaring her, just said work was challenging right now, and we're doing okay, but need to be careful with spending. She's a smart kid though. She knows something's wrong. But the thing that finally pushed me over the edge happened last week with that Arcadia account I mentioned. Trevor sent an email to Arcadia with completely wrong fee structures and risk assessments. He somehow calculated their fees at nearly double what they should be and changed their risk profile from moderate to aggressive without any documentation or approval. So the client emailed back, confused and angry about this sudden price increase and changed risk profile they never approved. Instead of checking the facts, Trevor doubled down and told them this was standard policy now. It's absolutely not. The client got more angry, and their CFO got involved, threatening to pull their entire account. Only then did Glenn realize this was serious and assigned me to assist Trevor in resolving the situation. I reviewed everything and immediately found that Trevor's calculations were completely wrong, like Finance 101 level mistakes. I showed him privately where he went wrong and how to fix it. At first, he refused to admit he made a mistake and suggested we just offer them a discount to shut them up. I had to explain that we need to be honest about the error or we'll lose their trust permanently. He finally agreed, but asked me to draft the correction email for him. So I spent an hour writing a careful, professional apology that explained the error without making the company look bad. Trevor sent it under his own name without even a thank you. The client responded positively, crisis averted. But then in our team meeting the next day, Glenn congratulated Trevor on handling the situation well, and Trevor just sat there accepting the praise like he did anything other than create the problem in the first place. When I tried to mention my involvement, Glenn literally cut me off and moved to the next agenda item. That night, I was so angry I couldn't sleep. I started going through some of my recordings from the past few weeks and found so much problematic stuff. Glenn saying I was more qualified, but family comes first in this business. Trevor admitting to Glenn he was in over his head, but Glenn assuring him they would make it work. Glenn coaching Trevor on how to take credit for my work. Trevor calling me just an analyst who needs to know his place. And that's just from the recordings. I also put together performance metrics showing my consistent excellence compared to Trevor's mistakes. I gathered email threads where clients specifically praised my work. I documented all the issues that happened under Trevor's management that I had to fix. I didn't know what to do with all this at first. I mean, confronting Glenn directly would probably just get me fired on the spot. I talked to Marie about it, and she told me about this guy from marketing who complained about favoritism last year and was fired 2 weeks later for performance issues that magically appeared after his complaint. But she also said I should stand up for myself somehow, because this situation is just getting worse. I usually try to avoid office politics. I just want to do my job well and go home to my kid, you know. Then last Friday, Trevor made a decision that cost us a small but loyal client we've had for 12 years. When Glenn questioned him about it, he tried to blame me for not providing proper guidance. That was the final straw. I spent the entire weekend organizing all my evidence, the recordings with timestamps and transcriptions, performance metrics, client feedback, and a detailed chronology of incidents. On Thursday night, I wrote up this super professional email explaining my concerns about the impact on the company and our clients and sent everything directly to Sandra, the division director, Glenn's boss. I found out from Sandra's assistant that Sandra has been concerned about the recent client complaints but doesn't know about all the internal drama. So maybe there's a chance she'll actually listen. But now, I'm freaking out. I hit send on that email last night, and I've been having panic attacks ever since. Did I just commit career suicide? Glenn once told another employee that complaining to upper management was the fastest way to get blacklisted in the industry. I haven't slept at all. I keep checking my email every 5 minutes. My heart jumps every time my phone makes any noise. What if this backfires completely? What if Glenn finds out before Sandra even reads it? What if I get fired and can't find another job and can't support Jackie? What if this follows me to other companies? God, I might have just made the biggest mistake of my professional life. Edit. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer the most common questions, yes, I have copies of all the evidence backed up in multiple places. Google Drive, my personal computer, and a USB drive. I'm not completely stupid. Several people have asked if I consulted a lawyer before doing this. No, I didn't. I probably should have, but lawyers are expensive, and I'm already stretching my budget thin supporting Jackie. I did research the recording laws in my state extensively, though, and I'm 100% certain one-party consent is legal here. For those asking about my ex-wife, no, she cannot take Jackie full-time if I lose my job. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment with her boyfriend and works crazy hours at her new job. Plus, Jackie is settled in her school and has all her friends here. But thanks for giving me one more thing to stress about. Now for the second update. It's been about 5 days since I sent that email to Sandra, my boss's boss, with all the evidence about Glenn's nepotism and Trevor's incompetence. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. A lot of you said I did the right thing but should prepare for the worst. And honestly, that's exactly what I spent the weekend doing. So after I hit send on that email Thursday night, after spending the entire day organizing recordings, performance metrics, client feedback, etc., I spent all of Friday feeling super nervous. I was trying to act normal while basically playing hide and seek with Glenn and Trevor. Every time I saw Glenn walking down the hallway, I'd suddenly remember an urgent call I needed to make or duck into the bathroom. Not my proudest moments, but I was terrified he somehow already knew. The weekend was torture. I kept checking my email literally every 5 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. I would wake up at 2 a.m., grab my phone, and refresh my inbox. Then again at 2:30, then 3:15. I kept imagining all these worst-case scenarios. Getting fired on Monday, being blacklisted from the entire financial industry, having to tell Jackie we suddenly can't afford rent anymore, living in my car, the whole spiral. I barely ate anything, couldn't focus on Netflix, kept second-guessing myself and wondering if I should email Sandra again to say, never mind, please ignore that previous email. Thank God I didn't do that. By Sunday night, I was a complete wreck. I hadn't slept properly in 3 days and was starting to get actual physical symptoms from the stress. Headaches, upset stomach, the works. I finally broke down and took a sleeping pill, which I almost never do. I worry about not hearing Jackie if she needs me during the night. Plus, the last time I took one, I was super groggy the next day. But I figured one night of proper sleep was better than showing up to whatever shitstorm was waiting for me, looking like an actual zombie. So Monday morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. I was still kind of out of it from the sleeping pill. And when I finally checked my phone, bleary-eyed at like 7:15 a.m., I saw I had 15 missed calls from Sunday night and early Monday morning. 5 from Glenn, getting increasingly frantic based on the timestamps. 3 from Sandra's assistant. 2 from Arthur in HR. 3 from various colleagues including Marie, and 2 from Trevor himself. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might actually pass out. I listened to the first voicemail from Glenn. It started with this cold fury. He told me to call him immediately about the inappropriate email I sent, but by the 5th message, he had almost changed to pleading. His tone completely changed from angry to this weird mix of defensive and desperate. Before I could return any calls, my phone rang again. It was Sandra's assistant asking me to come to the office immediately for an emergency meeting at 8:30 a.m. I literally felt sick to my stomach. This was it. I was about to get fired. I just knew it. I rushed to get ready, my mind racing with every possible outcome, mostly bad ones. I had to drop Jackie off at school early, and she could tell something was up. She gave me this unexpected hug and said I'd be okay, which almost made me start crying right there in the school parking lot. She's seriously the best kid. I don't know how I got so lucky. When I got to the office, something was definitely off. There was this weird energy, especially for a Monday morning. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see Glenn sitting there looking absolutely pale, while Sandra and Arthur were speaking to him intensely. Instead of joining them, Sandra's assistant led me to Sandra's office. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, knee bouncing uncontrollably, heart pounding, before Sandra came in. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept much either. Sandra told me they spent most of the weekend reviewing my evidence and conducting emergency interviews with several staff members. I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak without my voice cracking like a teenager. She said she was shocked by the recordings, especially the ones where Glenn talked about the favoritism and coached Trevor to take credit for my work. She thanked me for bringing this to her attention and mentioned that several clients had complained recently, but she hadn't understood why until now. Then she told me what would happen next, and honestly, I'm still in shock about it. Glenn was being demoted to senior financial analyst, my current position. I was being promoted to team manager right away. Trevor was being moved to a junior analyst position with required training. I would receive back pay to when the team manager position first opened. I sat there in shock for a minute, then asked about the reporting structure. Would I be reporting to Glenn now? Sandra told me that Glenn would actually be reporting to ME and acknowledged how awkward that would be. When I expressed concern about managing my former boss, she assured me she'd be watching the transition closely. I asked about potential payback from Glenn because, let's be real, he was not going to take this well. Sandra told me very clearly that any retaliation would get him fired immediately. I also asked about the client relationships that might have been damaged by Trevor's poor management, and she said they were preparing a plan to talk to key clients. When I asked what I should tell the team, Sandra said there would be a department meeting at 10 a.m. to announce all the changes. I thanked her for taking my concerns seriously, and she said that merit should always come before nepotism, and she was disappointed in Glenn. The department meeting was surreal. Sandra announced all the changes. Glenn sat stone-faced in the back of the room, and Trevor looked like he might burst into tears at any moment. The reactions from my colleagues were super mixed. Some people were openly supportive. Marie gave me an actual thumbs up during the meeting lol, while others who were clearly loyal to Glenn looked at me like I was some kind of traitor. Sandra explained the reorganization as ensuring we have the right people in the right roles based on merit and performance, without mentioning the recordings or evidence. She was very professional about the whole thing. After the meeting, I finally had a chance to check my other messages. Marie had called to warn me that Glenn was super angry Sunday night after being summoned to an emergency meeting with Sandra. A couple other colleagues had called to ask if I knew what was happening with all these emergency meetings. And surprisingly, Trevor's messages were actually apologetic, saying he was in over his head and asking if I would help mentor him in his new role. Which, what? Later that day, I had my first awkward interaction with Glenn. He approached my office, which used to be his office, making it even more awkward, with this stiff expression on his face. I offered him a seat, feeling extremely uncomfortable in my new position of authority, but he remained standing and asked tersely about the transition plan. I tried to keep things professional, outlining how I thought we should handle the handover process, when he interrupted me. He asked if I recorded every conversation we ever had, his voice almost shaking. I explained that I recorded meetings for note-taking purposes, not specifically to gather evidence against him. Which is true. I've been doing it for years, way before Trevor showed up. He accused me of planning revenge for months, and I calmly said I only compiled the evidence after the Arcadia Investments incident when he tried to blame me for his nephew's mistake. He told me bitterly that I'd ruined his career over one bad decision. I pointed out it wasn't one decision, but a pattern of favoritism, and his face got really red. He said he was under a lot of pressure from his sister-in-law, who had been hounding him for months to help Trevor. I told him that family pressure is difficult, but it doesn't justify workplace discrimination. Plus, his solution ended up humiliating Trevor even more by putting him in a position he couldn't handle. Then he straight up told me I'd made an enemy for life. I responded that I'd prefer we find a way to work together professionally, and he just laughed in this really hollow way and said, "Good luck with that," before walking out. The aftermath over the following weeks has been interesting. Some of Glenn's allies in the department initially tried to undermine me, whispering in meetings or forgetting to include me on important emails. But they gradually came around as they saw improvements in client satisfaction and workflow efficiency. Turns out having someone who actually knows what they're doing in charge makes a difference. Who knew? Trevor, surprisingly, has turned out to be a decent junior analyst when properly trained and without the pressure of a management role he wasn't ready for. He's actually pretty eager to learn, and I think he's relieved to not be in over his head anymore. I kind of feel bad for the kid. He was basically set up to fail by his uncle. During this whole transition period, I found out my ex-wife recently got engaged. What's weird is that this news didn't affect me nearly as much as it might have before all this workplace drama. I guess I've finally moved on from that chapter of my life. Or maybe I've just been too busy dealing with work stuff to care. Whatever, good for her, I guess. After about 2 months of extremely awkward daily interactions, Glenn eventually transferred to another department. I heard through the grapevine that his relationship with his sister-in-law is now super strained because she blames him for her son's humiliation. I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, justice was served, but on the other hand, I do feel a twinge of regret about the collateral damage to his family relationships. I never wanted to cause family drama for anyone. I just wanted to be treated fairly at work. Sandra has taken an interest in mentoring me, which is pretty cool. She sees potential for me to move further up in the organization. The company has also implemented new policies around nepotism and promotion transparency as a direct result of this whole incident. I finally feel valued for my work, and while the challenges of my new role are sometimes stressful, it's a good kind of stress, you know. There's still some lingering awkwardness with certain colleagues who view my promotion as opportunistic rather than earned, but most people have moved on. The best part is that I was able to move Jackie to a better apartment closer to her school, and I've started the college fund we've been talking about for years. She has her own bathroom now, which, let me tell you, makes both our lives better, lol.